My child, this is not random. It's a meeting. You've come to a point where your heart can no longer carry it all alone. You didn't ask for words, but they arrived. I've always known when your distractions would fall quiet, and when what you needed wasn't more answers, but a touch. And now, I'm here. You've spent a long time walking around that feeling, the one that says someone has to step in. Not to fix you, not to rescue you, just to be near. You didn't even admit it to yourself. You've learned to endure. You've learned to stay silent. You've learned to handle things on your own, but you can't anymore. And that's not weakness. That's the moment when silence becomes a cry. So much inside you froze. Not from apathy but exhaustion. Not from disbelief, but the weight of too much. I saw you holding on when no one else noticed. I saw you keep moving when everything inside had gone numb. That wasn't failure. It was endurance. It wasn't punishment. It was waiting, and the waiting is ending now. I didn't come like a storm. I came like breath. Not to speak loudly, but to awaken what's still alive in you. You didn't miss me. You weren't too late. I came when your silence turned into a whisper and you finally let yourself feel again. You heard me now, and that's enough to begin again. Everything ahead is still open. Everything begins now. You didn't walk away from me when you stopped feeling. You just went quiet. You became still, waiting for me to speak first. And you were right. I never left. I simply came closer. Not from the outside, but from within. I didn't push. I didn't demand. I just stayed. You've done more than you give yourself credit for. You didn't collapse even though you were worn down. You didn't turn cold even when no one was there for you. You kept being kind even when you had nothing left to give. You kept breathing through the days that felt like air had left the room. I saw it all. I carried it with you. I didn't come to judge your strength. I came to remind you that it's still there. Even if you feel burned out, it's not the end. Deep down, something still lives. A quiet agreement to keep going. Not out of habit, but from hope. Not from fear, but because something inside you knows there is more. Right now, I'm not asking you to get back up. I'm asking you to rest in me. Stop holding it together for everyone. Let yourself be here, unfiltered, unguarded, no role, no script. I'm not here for results. I'm here for you. That alone is enough to begin healing. Even if nothing has changed yet on the outside, my presence has already started the change within. You didn't know what was ahead. You just kept walking. Sometimes with your heart locked away, sometimes barely holding on, sometimes completely alone. You felt like you were surviving on the last thread of strength. But what you didn't know is that you weren't holding yourself up alone. I was walking with you. I didn't step in loudly. I didn't erase the pain in one moment, but I was near. I stood beside you on the nights when sleep wouldn't come. I sat with you when you stared at nothing, wondering how to go on. I held you when the world collapsed and there was no way out. Through it all, you were not abandoned. Your fears never drove me away. They didn't make you weak in my eyes. They showed how much you've been through. And in every crack in your soul, I left a little light. You think you've hardened, but really, you've grown strong. You think you've stopped feeling, but really, you just got tired of waiting for warmth. I don't blame you for going quiet. I understand why it became hard to trust. So much fell apart, and you closed your heart just to survive. But now, that heart is beating again. And that is no accident. I didn't come to tear down your walls. I came to draw near. You've carried so much pain alone. But from now on you won't have to anymore. I'm here. You thought you'd been passed over. That others moved ahead while you stood still. But you weren't standing still. You were growing deeper. When nothing seemed to shift on the outside, everything was shifting inside. In the quiet, unseen places, I was building something that will last. I didn't place you on the sidelines. I held you in my hands. That stillness wasn't rejection. That pause wasn't silence. I was preparing your heart. You were learning to stay in the light even when no one noticed. You were learning to speak gently when everything inside was clenched. You were learning to hope, not in the outcome, but in me. Not every road is fast. Not every beginning is loud. Some of the most sacred things arrive softly, through quiet shifts inside. You didn't miss your moment. It's just beginning. Everything that felt lost was simply waiting for the right time to rise. And now that time has come, not with a trumpet, maybe just with a quiet sense that something in you has woken up, maybe with your first real breath in a long time. I never failed you. I simply knew that seeds grow in silence. And now something is beginning to break through. Not just around you, but from within. You're stepping into a new season, one heartbeat at a time. You were waiting for me to move the walls, to swing the doors wide, to give a sign. But before I change what's around you, I always touch what's deepest within you, your willingness to live again. Not just survive, not just get through the day, but actually live. With hope, with openness, with breath that feels real. I won't force that shift. I don't drag you forward. I move gently. I wait for the moment when something soft opens in you. Not full confidence yet, but no longer fear. Not the whole answer, but no longer paralysis. That moment is sacred. It's small on the surface, but it's everything underneath. You've protected yourself for so long. I know why. You've walked through enough to fear new steps. You've learned to expect pain where you once had hope. That's why I won't pull you. I'll lead you gently, through quiet movements within. And one day, without even knowing exactly when, you'll notice you're reaching for life again. Everything around you may look the same walls, same people, same questions. But if your soul says yes, I'll begin shifting things. Not by the old rules, not by your old timing, but by what I've prepared for you. You won't miss it, because I never build without a foundation, and that foundation is being restored right now. Something in you is already responding, and that response is enough for everything to begin. I've heard every prayer you ever spoke, and the ones you never did, especially those, the prayers made of silence when you had no words left. That silence carried more truth than anything else. You weren't trying to prove anything. You just showed up, and that was enough for me to stay. I never needed proof from you. I'm not waiting for polished sentences or strong declarations. What I look for is your heart, not perfect but still open, even if it's weary, even if it's tangled, even if it's afraid to believe again. As long as it's still alive, I'm close. You may not know what to do next. You might feel unsure, disoriented, lost. That's not something you have to fix. It's not a problem. It's a place. The very place where I come near. Because when you stop trying to control everything, you begin to hear me again. Not the noise, not the fear, me. I'm not asking for a report. I'm not giving you a test. What matters now is the quiet movement of your soul in my direction. Even if it's small, even if it's wordless. That quiet yes, that's everything. I'll take it from there. What needs to come will come. What needs to heal, I will heal. You don't have to run. You don't have to do. Just stay. I'm already here. I see how you flinch at the thought of it all coming back. The old pain rising again. The fear gripping your chest like it used to. I know that fear, because what you went through wasn't light. It was heavy and lonely and invisible to most. You made it through what should have broken you. And now, it's not the pain you fear. It's the idea that it might be stronger than you. But it's not. You've grown. Even if you haven't noticed, you've become deeper. You stopped fighting to be loved and started breathing. You stopped proving you were enough and started existing as you are. Yes, the memory of the edge is still in you, but you're no longer standing on it. The shadow that once surrounded you has lost its power. I won't tell you there won't be struggles, but I will tell you, you're not the same. You're not fragile. You're not lost. You're not wandering in the dark. You've become someone who can find light in the smallest corner. You've learned how to hold on to me even when the world is silent. That's not weakness, that's strength. Now, when the dark tries to return, you don't fold like before. You remember who's with you, and that's enough. Because now, you're not walking back into what hurt you. You're walking forward into what I've prepared for you. Light is entering the rooms you used to lock, and this time, you're not retreating. You're moving, and I'm moving with you. You held on to what was draining you, not because you didn't see it, but because you were afraid. Afraid that if you let go, there'd be nothing left. I saw that. You weren't pretending to be strong. You simply didn't know how to live without what once gave you stability, even if it came with pain. But now it's time to be free. Some doors you couldn't close on your own. Too many emotions, memories, threads woven through your heart. You knew it couldn't stay, but you didn't know how to leave it behind. I never judged that. I knew you needed time, and I also know when that time comes. This is that moment. I'm not asking you to tear things down. I'm not asking you to hurt yourself to move on. I'll close what has already ended, and I'll do it gently. I'll bring relief, not loss. Peace, not emptiness. I'll remove the weight, not your heart. What held you will stop holding you. What haunted you will start fading. The new can't enter while your hands are full of what's over. I know letting go is scary, especially when it held part of your identity. But hear me, you won't lose yourself if you allow me to finish what no longer brings life. What you'll gain is something greater, space inside, the ability to breathe fully, the courage to walk forward, the freedom to live like someone no longer carrying what was never yours to hold. You've been waiting for a sign, something big, something emotional, a moment that would change everything. But I work differently. My healing often doesn't come with fireworks. It comes like a quiet warmth you don't notice at first, like a deep breath you didn't realize you were holding. That's how I move. I come into the places you've stopped visiting, the parts of you you've shut down because hope hurt too much. You decided not to touch those places anymore. And I didn't force it. I waited. I waited until you were no longer afraid to feel again. And now you are. You're ready for a healing that doesn't demand but restores. I won't make you cry, but if tears come, they'll cleanse. I'm not asking you to relive everything. I'm simply breathing near you, and your soul is starting to wake up. Where there was tension, you'll find softness. Where there was numbness, you'll feel motion. This isn't the miracle you were expecting. It's something better. My touch doesn't require effort. It doesn't depend on how spiritual you feel, how strong your faith is, or how ready you think you are. It comes because you matter to me, because I see where you hurt, even when you hide it, even when you're unsure whether you want to open up again. I'm already there. I'm already healing. And what's beginning now isn't from the surface. It's from the core of who you are. That's where new life begins. You weren't late, you didn't miss it. And you haven't wasted your life. Even if the years behind you feel like one long pause, like waiting with no reward, none of it was empty. Some of the deepest growth happens in stillness, when nothing moves on the surface, but everything is changing underneath. That's where I've been at work. You watched others move forward, and you asked, what about me? Why the delay? Why the silence? But during that silence, I was building in you something that wouldn't fall with the first storm. I was laying foundations no one could see. Strength that doesn't show up in headlines, but in how you kept walking through days no one applauded. You were never forgotten. You were hidden, like a seed buried in the dark. Not lifeless, just becoming. In a place where time couldn't be rushed and roots had to go deep. And you stayed, even with fear, even with doubt, even in exhaustion. You stayed. You didn't tear yourself away from me, and that was enough. Now the season is changing. It doesn't matter how old you are, how much you think you've lost, or how long it took. What I planted in you is starting to rise, Not because you did everything right, but because you didn't walk away. You let my breath stay in you, even when you couldn't feel it. That is maturity. And now, it's bearing fruit. You've wondered if it was all in your head. The things you once felt so sure I spoke. With time, the clarity faded. The hope got quieter. You started to ask, did I hear wrong? Did I believe too much? Did I hold on to something that was never mine to keep? I've heard those thoughts. And I tell you now, no, you didn't imagine it. The promise is still alive. I don't speak and then forget. I don't plant something in your heart and then walk away. If I said it, I meant it. It will come to pass, not in your timing, not by your plan, but fully and without delay, once the time is right. You weren't in the season of fulfillment. You were in the season of preservation, and now something is shifting. You thought delay meant denial, but I was protecting you. There were things you asked for that you weren't yet ready to carry. They would have been too heavy. They would have come at the cost of your peace. And I love you too much to let you burn out under the weight of answered prayers you couldn't yet hold. Now I'm leading you into a fulfillment that won't crush you. It will nourish you. You'll hear me again, but not always in the ways you expect. Not with the same words, not through the same doors. But what I said will begin to echo in new moments, in new people, in new places. And when it happens, you'll know. It wasn't lost. It wasn't undone. It's arriving. Because I am faithful. And you stayed close. That's all I needed to begin. You lived for so long like you were on the edge. Every morning felt like a challenge. Every night just relief that you made it through. You didn't know how much longer you could hold on, but you kept going. And now as you read this, I want you to hear me clearly. You didn't just survive. You crossed over. Not by accident. Not out of routine. You arrived at the threshold of something real. I didn't bring you here to test you again. I brought you here to show you something new. You're no longer living to keep from breaking. You're ready to live with fullness. You're no longer clinging to scraps. You're becoming someone who can receive abundance, and I will begin to pour. What once felt scattered will begin to come together. What used to sting will start to heal. The people you lost, they weren't taken in vain. The moments that felt wasted will begin to shine with meaning. I'm using all of it. Nothing will be discarded. Nothing was for nothing. You didn't walk this far by mistake. This whole path, even the detours, even the silence, was known to me. I've walked it with you. And now, standing at the edge of what's next, you need to know this. It's not the end. It's the beginning of something deeper. Not just outward progress, inward wholeness. I didn't just speak over you. I'm walking with you. And from here on, you're not moving alone. We go forward, together.